this is my review of Assassination Classroom. Okay, so this is the final episode of the series, and it not only set up the ending to the story, but also sets up what all of the kids wound up doing after they graduate from the Assassination Classroom. So it is a very interesting story and does give definitive endings for all of these characters. So it is a very fun episode. It's a funny, fun and definitive episode, and I do like it. So it starts off with Kurosama meeting with the kids. And Kurosama explains the situation to them about how, because of what happens, they're going to have to be given a couple of phony orders and will be followed around by military for a while, and that he's sorry that they'll have to put up with that inconvenience for a while. And they point out that they don't really mind, and point out that whatever makes Kurosama's life easier, they're more than happy to help him out with. But then Kurosama respects that and asks if there's anything they need, that he'll be more than willing to set it up for them. At which point they remark that they actually want to graduate at Kunigigaoka Junior High's main facility. They actually want to go and graduate at the actual graduation. And Kurosama agrees that he can actually pull some strings to make that happen. At which point, at Isagai's request, everybody gets up and then in unison bows their head, thank Kurosama and Irina for teaching them everything they've known, and that they will be eternally grateful for what they've learned from them. And both Kurosama and Irina are speechless. They are moved to. They're actually completely stunned that their students regard them in such high esteem. But after this point, they actually arrange for he actually does arrange for all of them to go and graduate. And as Nagisa is going up to get his diploma, he remarks about the graduation itself, and how according to him, it's a very solemn moment, and he's glad so many people are getting to move on. And he points out that this is what Korosensei would have wanted. He would have wanted to see them graduate, and that he's glad that they're actually officially graduating from Kunigigaoka Junior High, and he hopes that he'll be proud of them in the afterlife. At which point it's Nagisa's turn to go up to get the diploma, and Asano points out that he notices Nagisa seems a bit more confident, and points out that that's no doubt because of Korosensei. And Nagisa does confirm this, and also tells Asano to be easier on his students in the going forward, which Asano actually agrees to. But after the graduation ceremony and everybody proceeds to pack up and get ready to go home, Nagisa actually discovers his parents together. And wonders why they're together, pointing out that they're very much divorced. But at which point Nagisa's dad actually explains the situation, that about a month before his assassination, Korosensei actually came to Nagisa's dad and explained how Nagisa has been refusing to use his last name, pointing out that he wants to kind of preserve his father's family name and go by Nagisa, on the off chance that his parents eventually get back together, which means so that he can actually transition back to his original name. And does point out how, and then also his dad also proceeds to go on and explain how Korosensei has continued to explain how Nagisa continued to work hard about his goals going into March, and that's what made his parents realize that if they can, that in order to actually go and honor Korosensei's final request to his parents, that they should not only go and honor Nagisa's graduation together as a family, but that because of Korosensei's kind words, they realized that they should actually take a page out of Nagisa's book and actually give their marriage another shot. Which moves Nagisa to tears and wonders and then proceeds to wonder how much of Korosensei was willing to leave behind of himself before he died. But in case, as Nagisa and the rest of the class proceed to get ready to go home, and get on the bus to actually leave Kunigigaoka, they're actually hassled by a bunch of reporters who Kurosama tries and fails to keep at bay, and pointing out that they've actually been through enough, and that they shouldn't be asking so many questions of the students. but the reporters don't care, and Kurosama just describes them as vultures. But as the reporters are starting to hassle Class 3E, Kakushu Asano and his Elite 5 actually swoop in and as Kakushu actually points out, gives his fellow students a hand in their time of need. Case in point, they then proceed to shield Class 3E using the standard from the school to actually cover the class, and uses some of the students from A class to actually keep it supported so that they can actually shield them, and then escort them to the bus and proceed to send them on their merry way. But as they're getting ready to go on the bus, Gakushu actually stops Karma and pointing out, since he's the only one who's actually staying at Kunigagaku Junior High, and tells him that he knows that since Karma's going to stay behind, it means that he's going to have a bit of a rough time going forward, but states that he's going to do his best to be a worthy rival to Karma, and also asks him if he can pick his brain about Korosensei and what he was like. But Karma merely makes a bit of a snide remark that he would be more than happy to, but he doubts that Gakuju will actually be able to fully understand the situation, and then proceeds to get on the bus. But with that, the students then proceed to get on the bus and go home, and as they're headed home, Nagisa gives one last thank you and goodbye to Class 3E, Kunigagaoka, and Korosensei respectively. At which point they then all proceed to go home, and we find out one last thing that before it actually goes into the future montage. But we find out that as a result that because of gravity, the permanent crescent that the moon got blown up into, because of the explosion, not only did it become closer to the Earth, but it also began to collapse in on itself under its own gravity and under its own weight, and eventually did return back into a somewhat perfect sphere. And as Nagisa remarks, it was the thing that started their school year, the thing that brought them all together, and now it's gone. So it's not obviously the moon is a not so subtle stand-in for the fact that the the assassination classroom is over, and over time their memories are eventually going to fade of the class. While they are going to cherish the memories, they are slowly going to forget, and eventually their memories are going to fade about the class is. But the bonds they've developed are going to last a lifetime. And also one other final thing is that because of the assassination classroom project, the Class 3E mountain was actually shut down. Because of the assassination classroom project, people eventually realized that there was an assassination plot happening on the mountain, and the Class 3E satellite campus was actually shut down, and Gakuho Asano was actually kicked off of the board of education for Kunigagaku Junior High because of that decision. For knowingly withholding that kind of information, he is no longer allowed to teach at Kunigagaku Junior High. So he was kicked off and booted off as principal and head of the board of education. Although, as Nagisa points out, he likely has a plan, and he doubts that he won't be returning back to school at any time soon, and that he will eventually return to his career as an educator. And sure enough, as Kurosama as Asano is actually cleaning up his office, he's actually greeted by his former cram school students, or at least the two that are still around. Obviously the tragic part of his backstory, that the one died, is that obviously happened, but his two remaining students decide to come and greet him out of respect. And they point out that it's a little bit sad that he's actually leaving education, and point out that if there's anything he can do, that they'd be more than willing to help. At which point he pulls out a bottle of wine and tells them that that the best thing they can do is catch them up on what's gone on with their life since they last met. Since obviously he hasn't seen them in years, and he wants to know what kind of lives they're leading. So he decided to bust open a bottle of wine and just chat with them about what's gone on. And they agreed to do that, all three of them, which is kind of a sad, somber moment, but also kind of joyful that his former student is still very much alive, in their hearts at least. But in case that then just leaves the one last loose end not tied up, which is the bounty. So obviously the bounty is So obviously the bounty was a big thing going into the series, and that was the main motivator at the start of the series for why they wanted to actually kill Korosensei. And obviously now that they've actually done the deed, the government actually has to pay out the bounty. However, the students, after remembering Korosensei's words, both from his book and in life, it's not so much about the reward, but about the experience of actually doing it. So they decide instead to just set aside enough money to actually live comfortably. Then pull the money together to make one last purchase, which we actually do find out later what that purchase is, and it's a very cute thing. And then finally giving all of the money back to the government, which Kurasama is able to use to further his career and has a more prosperous career ahead of him. But in any case, it then cuts to the future. 7 years have passed since all of that happened, and since the end of the series, and now we get to find out how everybody is actually living their lives. So it starts off with a scene with Kurasama and Irina. So 7 years have passed, and in that time they've become partners, both in the field and in life. So yeah, Kurasama and Irina did officially tie the knot, are married, and actually do have a loving daughter according to the manga. So yeah, they do have a baby girl, which is kind of cute. But other than that, their dynamic hasn't really changed all that much. Irina still continues to flirt with Kurasama and tries to tease him a little bit. And she does this while he's trying to give her an assignment to go out into the field and investigate something in the Middle East. And she agrees to do it, but also remarks that if something bad were to happen to her, she then teasingly remarks that Kurasama would come to her aid if something bad were to happen to his wife. At which point he then proceeds to shut it down by saying that if she doesn't want the actual assignment, then he'll give it to somebody else. At which point she completely does a full 180 and concludes that she does actually want the assignment and then runs off. And Kurasama then remarks that she hasn't really changed all that much, and points out that he hasn't really changed all that much either, and then wonders what actually happened to his kids, what happened to Class 3E. And as we turned out, we actually do find out. So Kaino actually went back to working as an actress. She actually went back to being a star after the events of the Assassination Classroom. So now she's officially an actress again. She kind of dropped off the face of the earth for a while to play Kaede Kaino, but she went back to acting and is now a lot better for it. But during her lunch break, she actually decides to go over to the old campus, which is revealed to have been the major purchase that they made. As it turns out, they bought the actual the old satellite campus. And most of the students actually gather there to actually renovate it and bring it up to code, which is something that they've been trying to push for a long time, and now that they actually own the school, they can actually do it themselves. So, yeah, and as all of the students begin to catch up, we actually find out a bit more about some of the students that we don't actually see in the scene because they've actually gone off to live their own lives. And also Kaede also remarks that as they're working that the reason they're doing this is so that it can be a place of remembrance and not so much a grave for both her sister and Korosensei, pointing out that this is their home and that they don't want to take it from them, and that they just want a place to go and back to and remember them. So with that, they then proceed to actually go work and catch up, and we do find out a bit more about how everybody is living their life. So as we find out, a couple of people Kurahashi and Okino have actually set up their own businesses in the wilderness surrounding the mountain campus, doing a parkour training and bug catching respectively. And they actually have gone on to start using the mountain. Meanwhile, as we actually find out, Karma has actually gone on to become CEO of a major company and is quite literally running the world now. So he's very important. As we find out, Ryo Nakamura has actually gone on to go study abroad. She's doing something with that. Ritsu has actually uploaded herself to the internet. So now she's quite literally a free spirit. She can do whatever she wants whenever she wants instead of being bound by her programming as an artificial artillery machine, which is kind of cute. Terasuka has actually gone on to become bodyguard and personal assistant to a famous professor. Okuno and Okuda and Tokabayashi have actually gone on to use Korosensei's research to actually create an artificial blood type that can be universally donated to anybody. So they've been developing it. So they've actually developed their own artificial blood type, which can save thousands of millions of lives. They use their combined knowledge to create an artificial blood type, which is really cool. And also Sugino went on to become a baseball star, which obviously he's very good at now that he's figured out how to actually pitch. So and also Muramatsu, Yoshida, and Itana actually went on to take over their respective family businesses. Hazuma is now a librarian and struggling novel author. She's actually trying to write her own horror stories. And as we find out, a couple of other people have actually gone on to live their lives as well. And at which point Kaede remarks to herself that obviously Korosensei's life and teachings have actually impacted all of their lives. That his one life has impacted countless others. And now because of that, they've actually gone on to live respectful lives and actually use his teachings to better themselves. And now they can actually go on to actually live fulfilling lives using the teachings Korosensei taught them, which is a very cute moment. But as she's remarking that to herself, Okajima actually splashes her with a hose by accident. And she tries to splash him back in retaliation, only for him to duck behind Meg, and she gets caught in the crossfire. And eventually the entire class just has at it. They all just start squirting each other with water and getting into a water fight. With Kaede remarking that they definitely haven't changed, and that even if the reason they all came together is no longer in their lives, being Korosensei, they will all continue to have lifelong bonds that will last a lifetime. At which point, after the splash fight, Hara actually asks Kaede if she's actually been keeping in touch with Nagisa and asks what the story is. But as she points out, Nagisa actually is, as always, is very much a keep your eyes on the prize kind of guy, she kind of fell off his radar a little bit, although she has tried to keep in touch with him. At which point we actually cut to the end of Nagisa's story, and as we find out, he actually has succeeded in becoming a teacher in training, although not as he envisioned it. How he envisioned it was that he'd be a bit taller and would actually be in charge of a respectful group of kids. But instead, not only is he still the same height he was back in middle school, and even lamenting that several of his friends have actually either caught up or are a lot taller than him. Karma is actually shot up like a weed and is now 6 feet. So yeah, he, in addition to that, he actually ironically enough wound up being in charge of a group of delinquents as part of his teacher training. So yeah, it is kind of a bit of a sad moment at first where Nagisa actually gets stuck teaching a group of delinquents, and they don't really give a shit if he's the teacher. But they kind of bully him like as if he were a student. And even make fun of his androgynous appearance and the fact that he's so short. And while Nagisa tries in vain to tell them to take their seat now that the class has actually started, but eventually one of the head delinquent, I guess, actually walks up to Nagisa and says that he can't really bother, that if he orders them around, he'll kill him. And right as the student delinquent says that, Nagisa's remarks that kill has such a funny connotation, and that it means a bunch of different things for a bunch of different people, but as he remarks, it actually can be a trigger in the right hands. And case in point, the second the student says kill, Nagisa goes full assassin mode and and uses his stun clap to paralyze the student and make him sit down. At which point he remarks that he's welcome to try and that he has until graduation, all with a smile on his face. And then proceeds to walk up to the board and get ready to give out lessons. And as he's walking up to the board, the student actually sees a vision of Korosensei, although he's not sure if he's imagining it or not. And then Nagisa takes his place at the head of the class and tells everybody that it's time for them to begin. And as Nagisa would put it, the bell rings and another day begins. So yeah, that's how this series ends. With not only do everybody actually go on to actually living fulfilling lives and actually go on to live in their respective lives and worlds, and actually go on to become professionals in the things that they actually focused on when they were in middle school, but In Nagisa's case, it's actually very interesting, because obviously he was the one who actually did the deed and actually killed Korosensei, but he's actually become the next Korosensei. He's actually not only taken up Korosensei's mantle as teacher to a T, but in addition to that, he's actually moved on to become the next Korosensei. He's basically the cycle has begun anew. With Nagisa, it started with Korosensei taking Nagisa under his wing and teaching him to become a skilled assassin / teacher. And now Nagisa is going to likely do the same to this group of kids as well. He's now in charge of a bunch of delinquents, and he's likely going to touch their lives for the better and help them improve. So yeah, that's how the series ends, with Nagisa going on to become the next Korosensei and grooming the next group of kids to potentially do the same. So yeah, and that's just interesting. It's like, now I'm just imagining this entire line of teacher teaching student to become teacher to become student. I'm just imagining this never-ending line of that, where Korosensei teaches Nagisa, Nagisa goes on to become a teacher himself, teaches another group of kids, and then one of those kids from that group goes on to teach another group of kids, and so on and so forth until the end of time. And that's just what I'm imagining the story could be, because that's obviously what they've set up here. Obviously, the series is over because now the titular character is no longer in the series, or at least the main mascot of the series is no longer around. But it is interesting to note that this is that they could easily just continue this thread of kids being trained to become assassins / teachers, and then continuing on with the thread that Korosensei started. And it is a very interesting way to end the series. But in any case, that's my review of Assassination Classroom and the final episode of the series. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. And also, be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It helps me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that I'm always saying thanks, so be sure to go do that. I also post who actually help support me over on my website, and in addition to some written reviews, so go check those out. And finally, if you do want to help support me even further, then be sure to go check out my Twitch. It's down in the description below. Zack does Twitch. You can check it out either using the link in the description or by searching in twitch.tv. I stream every Sunday, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm working on making my streams a little bit more low latency while I figure out my internet issues. So, yeah, hopefully I'll have that worked out for Sunday. I should have it worked out for Sunday. I'm working on it, but yeah, go check that out if you want to. I actually kind of messed up my stream a little bit, so there's like 4 on there now. And also, if you want to go check out some more videos that I have done, be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is the video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you guys want to try something new, or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. But regardless of whether or not you do any of those things, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!